So as part of what community here and even the bigger world as support them as well. And I think by including people into the clubs,
America. That concludes the minute to invite Jessica Avalon onto stage. Never mind. So you have guys for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. At this time, we are going to reconvene for the debate night, so if the candidates could please make your way up to the stage. Okay, thank you. So at this time, what we are going to do now is I am going to ask questions that you guys submitted with Sleeto from the audience. And I will then ask the questions to the presidents or the vice presidents or everyone unless you specifically stated who you would like your question to be addressed to. Candidates, you will still have 1 minute to answer the question, and I will ring the bell when you have 20 seconds left. Our first question is for the presidents only, and you can decide who would like to speak first. Speaking about transparency, we have talked about this every year in the past 3 years, and I haven't seen any changes. How is this going to be changed?
Yeah, I think, my 3 years here, I've heard about it in almost every campaign. But so I guess one of the things I see that there's a disconnect between the student body and SGA is that people just don't know what SGA really does. And I think more awareness to what we actually do and kind of bringing light into the stuff that goes on into the cabinet and things like that, I think was one of the ways we can create transparency, maybe using like platforms like social media, like Instagram, for example. Yeah, things like that, I think, is how we would kind of foster that.
So like I mentioned before, we want to implement this, what's it called? Sorry, the monthly newsletter and the What's Your Take table. So by implementing the monthly newsletter, we will be able to let the student body know what's going on within SGA, and then with the What's Your Take table, that will also be monthly. We can hear what the student body wants to see changed on campus or what we can do better. So I think that would be a good start to kind of bridging that gap between us.
Okay, this question will be for the vice presidents only. How are you going to promote sustainable practices such as recycling? How will you ensure this is carried out?
Yeah, so the Recycle Mania program that the Sustainability Office is partnering with other colleges for, I think we need to make that more available, accessible to students because people really don't know that's happening. Yeah, if you don't know, we're in competition with other colleges to see which university or college can actually recycle the most. I don't know how many people actually know that we're in that competition right now. So I think that promoting things like that is one of the most important practices. Just making aware the importance of it. Also, I think that regarding the water bottle filters, the cost of those is $2,000 plus installation fees. So if we're going to be installing those, I think that needs to go through Student Senate. And those funds are going to have to be decided on by the clubs because that club money should really technically be going to the clubs, but I think that needs to need to be put forward through a process that we've already implemented and that these systems are supposed to work through.
This question will be for the presidents. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
How are you going to promote sustainable practices such as recycling? How will you ensure this is carried out?
Yeah, so great question. I'm just speaking from my personal experience this semester. One of my roommates, actually, sorry, last semester, one of my roommates took a sustainability class. I see one of my other roommates smiling right now, but and he really took it on himself to share with the rest of us in the apartment like why sustainability was important and what types of practices we can start doing. Like right now we don't even have paper towels in the apartment, which is kind of crazy, but it's been great. And so that impacted me, and like I went from somebody who's like recycling is important to, oh yeah, we should have a composter bin. And so I think I say that to say that I think we need to be better educated on that and kind of have that personal impact to really actually like want to be sustainable. Because for me, I went from, yeah, we should always recycle to, oh yeah, I see like the impact, and so I want to know more. Now when I actually go over to those trash cans that are marked, like I'm actually like, oh, I'm gonna try and put it in the right one this time. And so that's from my experience, that's really what impacted me. And so kind of going from there, and how do we kind of change more of a culture and make people care more about that? So.
The next question will be for America and Yabetz. America, I would like you to answer first. The campus lacks awareness for physical disabled students. Do you have any plans to bring more awareness to the challenges physical disabled students face?
Yes, that's a really good question. And one of the things that I've recently noticed with the new construction, with the building and the new steps, I noticed that there wasn't a ramp or anything for, let's say, if there's a student that's in a wheelchair or even crutches that's coming from that side of the campus. So I think bringing that up to the people in charge and the administration, I think that would be a good start to that, and just looking at other buildings such as the dorms and the apartments even, because there's no elevators in the apartments, and so we're limited to where we can house the physically disabled students. So just making administration aware of that.
Yeah, so that's not something that I personally know too much about. So I think my first step in tackling that issue would be asking different students that feel comfortable talking about it, seeing like what exactly it is that I can do to help them, not assuming what is actually what I think they need, but rather talking to them and seeing like what kind of changes I can bring about them. And I think first it would start off with conversations, and they would go from there.
Okay, the next question is for everyone. Matt, I would like you to start, and then we can work our way down the line. Seeing as SGA is not event planning committee, what procedural changes would you make to cultivate the kind of culture you say you want?
So I know in our conversation with Christian Ministries, the students around that leadership team, they expressed this that the red tape actually confines what they can do on campus. So we want to be able to kind of optimize the processes that allow students to be able to make events on campus. I know that was expressed by Christian Min. I imagine that's also going to be the case for SAB when we have the opportunity to speak with their leadership team next year and the team transitioning out this year. So I think that refining those processes, because and hearing from the students who are in those positions now and understand what may feel like a constraint, that's going to be essential. So that way we can implement those in the next year and not only implement them, but also see and evaluate how they're functioning. So regarding the red tape, the policy that's involved with that procedurally is going to be important. And also SGA needs to, I believe SGA needs to partner with more organizations like Minds Matter, Angle Center, MCC, and SAB, because SGA's What's Your Take tables and Civil Discourse series are the only events that we're physically located on campus. So it's important that we partner with these other organizations that have event funding available, and then we either support them with our own funding or we partner with them in order to have those events.
Seeing as SGA is not an event planning committee, what procedural changes would you make to cultivate the kind of culture you say you want?
Yeah, so kind of like what Matt said, when we were going around getting signatures to be able to even run for this position, we asked students what they would like to see changed, and like he said, one was the Christian Ministries Club would like to see less red tape on what they can do because their mission can't be fully expressed with all these limitations that they're set, and also by being able to be a part of other communities such as MCC, the athletics departments, Minds Matters, and the Engel Center and Sage, we can help bridge the gaps and help them connect with each other to see how we can collaborate with each other and combine in events.
Yeah, so as you two have said, one of the big things we want to do is partnerships. So I won't touch too much on that, but so part of our platform is, with the Love, Listen, and Act, is to help people feel more of a sense of belonging on campus, recognizing that this is a place that we all share, and we want everybody to feel at home here. We want to do what we can to make that happen. And I think one place, even in my experience, that I found belonging is within friend groups, within clubs. I work at the Agape Center, even Res Life. That team last year was my family, and so I think that goes along with the partnerships of different clubs and supporting them and figuring out, whether we do events or even something with civil discourse with the 2020 election coming up. But yeah, supporting the different clubs and helping to strengthen and refine them and work together. Yeah, to make campus a better place for everybody. So.
Could you say the question one more time?
Yes. Seeing as SGA is not an event planning committee, what procedural changes would you make to cultivate the kind of culture you say you want?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it starts within ourselves. We kind of have to have that kind of heart in order to portray that to the student body. As a cabinet, we would cultivate those kind of relationships, and as well as, I think SGA does have the ability to make events, and even though we're not a planning committee, we can plan certain small events throughout the year kind of to foster those things.
Okay, our next question is specifically for Will and Yvette. Why are you concerned with parking and water bottle filters when there are non-necessities instead of focusing on holistic development? Where will the funding for these changes come from? Only one of you needs to answer.
Okay, yeah, so the reason we kind of focused on those things is we went around and asked what people actually wanted, and that's kind of the response we got from students, and we wanted to focus on more tangible things that we can actually tackle instead of mentioning things that are all up in the air, and kind of grounding ourselves in like things we can kind of move forward to and kind of develop a plan towards. So that's kind of our goal. I don't know if I answered your whole question. Is that good? Okay.
Okay, the next question is for America and Yvette. America, you can start. How do you plan to combat the waitlist for services obtained at the Engel Center?
So we actually met with the Engel Center a couple days ago, and we met with Eleanor, if any of you know her. She said that they see about 400 students and about 14 are on the wait list right now. And so by talking to her, we got to realize that we can, to approach it systematically, we can, as a whole, collaborate together. So like Minds Matter, Sage, we can come together to be able to divide into small groups, chapel series, other events, to be able to do more of a group approach, and then hopefully we can still be able to fulfill the needs, and then eventually these students will be able to be seen within the Engel Center because they are self-paid, so they can't necessarily bring in another counselor to be able to bring in those students. And if the Engel Center counselors that are staffed now bring in those students, now they'll be overworked, and that won't be a good environment for either the worker or the student that's being seen.
Yeah. So I think one of the, America mentioned a good statement of, I think we could try to start off with seeing if it's feasible to have more counselors on staff, And if that's not feasible, then maybe moving to students who ask students if they are willing to go into groups, and then as well as if they need individuals, then we kind of prioritize them to meet one-on-ones, and as well as maybe if faculty members who are in the psychology department have the skills to do that, kind of leaning on them if they are willing to volunteer in that space as well.
This next question is for America. What perspective can you bring being an athlete? Is there something the school should be doing to address athletic concerns, or are we doing too much?
I think as a whole, we can say that we might see that athletes get too much attention and too much money, but what we don't realize is that all of the money that comes to athletics is usually donated from people. So if they're donating, they usually donate to a specific cause. And I think the athletic trainers down in the athletic training room are well equipped to deal with mental health as well, not as extensively as the Engel Center. So I think that can be the athletic trainers can serve as another way for athletes specifically to be able to talk about mental health issues with the athletic trainers there.
The next question is for the vice presidents. So Will, you can start with this question. Seeing the purpose of SGA is to be a link between students and administration, how do you plan to communicate to students what is going on in administration?
I think it starts with what we've been talking about a lot is helping to communicate exactly what SGA is to students. I think even you guys have some great ideas with the newsletter, and yeah, making students more aware of what SGA can actually do, and going from there, and so. Yeah, and through that, like to represent the students, that's when we listen and we hear their concerns, and we kind of try and find those things where kind of the administration doesn't see and provide a different perspective, because a lot of the people making decisions aren't living life from the day to day on our campus, and so that's kind of how we see SGA is to represent us because we're living here. Faculty, administration, they're great. They do a lot of great things, but they don't live here, and so that's and as well as the commuters who are taking classes. Don't want to forget to mention them, but that's really what we see the goal of SGA.
So I think that SGA has a lot of contact with the college administration. I know I have. I've talked to Kathy Schaefer, head of operations, and she's explained some things to me, like knowing that the parking lot out there, Jordan Klein, the reason that it's not open on weekends is because they want student guests to come in. And that's what that space is being used for. But telling them that mission or that objective, that priority, is not being successfully accomplished because that parking lot's empty every weekend. Students, guests are not fulfilling that parking lot like the intention is. So understanding college intentions, college administration intentions, and being able to address them with the reality of the situation is what SGA is going to need to do. And that goes beyond and just understanding kind of the issues as a whole. So like inclusive excellence, this is on a more broader scale of how we can address things on the whole. Inclusive excellence is a universal, so throughout college administration, clubs, organizations, and that approach needs to be modeled through mental health as well. It can't just be Res Life, it can't just be Engel Center, it can't just be Minds Matter dealing with mental health. This needs to be approached from every club, every organization, every administrator on campus, and every student. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is for Yabets in America, and Yabets, I would like you to start first. What are tangible ways that there can be an increased support for MCC?
So I think I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. It would be kind of first understanding with them, talking with the leaders all around, kind of building that relationship, and then from there moving on to maybe seeing how SGA can support that through maybe like social media and the different platforms that we have access to, and kind of working together as a group in that sense. I think that's where I would say for that.
What are tangible ways that there can be an increase of support for MCC?
So as part of LAL's cabinet, I know that we have a very limited budget, MCC as a whole. So first of all, I would like to revisit budgets within clubs. Some clubs don't need as much money as they're getting. And so being able to increase club funding for MCC will allow them to do more events throughout the year and be able to get more people involved and learn what MCC is all about.
Okay, our next question is for America and Matt. Only one of you needs to answer. You both keep mentioning mental health awareness, but I have not heard any concrete action plans. How will you promote mental health awareness?
Yeah, so Angle Center right now is hosting a grief group, and I think that more small groups like that, implementing them on broader topics like depression. Because, fun fact, 63.4% of students experience anxiety within a given year, and 41.9% of students have said they felt so depressed within the last year. That's among college students. That's by the American College Health Association. So we need to begin to address small group conversations on these broader topics that are prevalent throughout campus, like depression, like anxiety, not just about grief in particular, because there needs to be more of that small group discussion that can begin to foster an environment. And we also can go with chapel series and fivers. There's a fiver going on right now regarding women's sexuality. And being able to create fivers like that that deal with mental illness and regarding depression and anxiety specifically is the most prevalent issues on college campuses. And then also partnering events with Minds Matter, Angle Center. We had an opportunity to sit down at the Angle Center. They encouraged the small group discussion and actually has worked to try to create those and make those happen. We have not had the opportunity to sit down with Minds Matter, but we are in contact, and we would love to sit down with them and start brainstorming some of their events along the stage as well.
Okay, our next question will be for everyone, and we are going to start with Yabetz and work our way back. What are your plans to make Messiah a more welcoming space for LGBTQ plus students, specifically in how the Code of Conduct forbids same-sex sexual expression?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so I think that's a good question. I think on campus, I feel like we should be a community that accepts everybody, no matter where they stand in that. I think no one should feel like they should be excluded or don't feel like they have a sense of belonging. I guess one of my stance would be to love on everybody as best as I can, and I think that's what we're called to do. But I'm not too sure on what the specific policy of the college is, but I would love to hear and listen out to anybody who would like to have that conversation with us.
That's a good question. I think that the policy, I don't want to necessarily comment like directly on that, 'cause I don't know if that's within my scope of questioning or affirming, because it is a sensitive topic. But I do know that I think it's possible for the policy to maybe cause LGBTQ students to feel uncomfortable and unwelcome here, and maybe at times it could encourage students not to feel like they belong on our campus. And I think we really need to, if that's the case and if that's happening, I think we really need to look at that and to listen and to hear people's experiences. And as Christians, whatever your stance is, we have a call to love people and to love them well and to accept them. And I think that's what we need to do. We're going to respect everybody's beliefs, but at the end of the day, loving is just so important. And if people aren't feeling belonging on this campus, then I don't think we're doing a good job as Christians.
So when we we had a meeting, Matt and I, with Sage and with 2 of their 3 leaders, just talking about what their needs are. Right now, they really need some restructuring in their club, but I think that would be good because Sage provides education on sexuality. So I think that would be good to help them restructure Sage and leadership positions and forming them into more of a club, because right now they only have 3 leaders who are graduating seniors, so that's going to be a problem for next year. And like Will said, I think we need to act as if we're really claiming to be Christians, we should love one another regardless of what they believe in, love your neighbor, and be more of a Christ-like influence.
Yeah, so the current college policy is that homosexual identity is not inconsistent with Christianity. However, homosexual behavior is. So that's the campus policy, if anybody didn't know that. I think that the college overemphasizes the component of behavior being consistent with the Christian identity and minimizes the idea that Christian identity is not inconsistent with Christianity. So I think that clarifying that policy and emphasizing that the Christian identity as a matter of policy on campus, not as a matter of individuals, not as a matter of what you personally believe, but as a matter of policy on campus, a Christian identity is not inconsistent with LGBT, being part of the LGBT community. So I think emphasizing that component and clarifying that college administration goes back to the idea of SGA as an agent of transparency. But also I think that SGA needs to help to affirm Sage Prism. Sage is not a club or organization, it's run through the SILP office. So SGA really has minimized contact with them because we're not funding them like we are with every other club or organization. So SGA is going to have to intentionally engage with Sage when that's not even their prerogative in order to create more events, specifically with Sage Prism. I had the opportunity to go to the Sage Prism event a couple weeks ago, and it was fantastic, and we need to try to support that better through SGA.
Okay, our next question is for Yabetz and Will. Only one of you needs to answer this question. So regarding Yabetz and Will's goal of creating a diverse cabinet, how would you both specifically go about doing that? You mentioned prioritizing a diverse cabinet, but how would you avoid tokenization?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. I think one of the things we want to focus on is making sure that we're not excluding anybody, but also including, but also doing it based off of skills and what kind of talents and abilities that the people that are interviewing for the positions show us, and we will do it based off of that, but not exclude anybody as well.
Okay, one moment. Our next question will be for America and Yabetz. With the world epidemic of coronavirus, how would you protect the Asian community on campus who may feel racism targeted towards them? What? Yes. With the world epidemic of coronavirus, how would you protect the Asian community on campus who may feel racism targeted towards them?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Whoever asked that, thank you. I think that we should hope to model an atmosphere of love and not necessarily blame people for the coronavirus that aren't even living there right now. And I think that's kind of the atmosphere we should model of love all around and not kind of exclude people because of that, and kind of empower them in situations and kind of open the door for people who do feel like they're experiencing racism because of this to come talk to us and kind of fight the battle for them and be an advocate for them in that situation.
I think with collaborations with MCC again, it would be a good thing to go to Asian Student Association clubs and learn more about them. I know they're one of the smaller groups of the MCC, so go and support them, because not every Asian has the coronavirus, just in case you didn't know. Just like not every Hispanic knows how to speak Spanish. And so also with having open discussions and dialogue about the coronavirus, and get yourself educated on what it is and who actually has it and how it's being spread.
Okay, our next question is for everyone, and we can start with Matt and then end with Yabetz. How would you define social justice, and how would you incorporate that in your platform?
Yeah, so I think it's really true in my role this year in SGA. I was Vice President of Student Review, so I dealt a lot with student conduct, and I had to think really deeply about what does restorative justice look like, and what does reconciliation look like. I think for me, that begins with trying to find ways that for people who are in conflict with college or conflict with other students' values, is finding ways to affirm their identity and giving them recommended ways that can actually promote them towards becoming less bigoted, essentially. So instituting policies instituting dialogue that have pragmatic goals that students can achieve, that students can mentor with facilitators or educators on campus. I think that helps with students to be able to understand what reconciliation is on a college campus. But reconciliation as a whole, I believe, begins with disengaging in conflict, and that is done through open discourse with one another. Because when conflict arises, the only way that you can kind of break it down is by talking it out. And I firmly believe that. I believe that that's what reconciliation looks like. And I think that's true to who I am theologically, that's true to who I am in the role I've pursued this year. And I think that the work in SGA I've done so far has definitely helped me realize that and helped me understand the kind of the Anabaptist roots of the college as well. So.
I think as a whole campus, we need to be giving every student an equal opportunity, regardless of their race, their gender, their ethnicity, sexual orientation, and be able to give the people with the skills a position in whatever leadership or club activity that they want to do, and just being able to support all and every student that's here on campus within our term is something that I hope that we can do and be able to achieve just by open dialogue, discussions, and just being able to have one-on-one conversations with people and just seeing what the people's needs are through our What's Your Take tables and through our monthly newsletters that we'll send out.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
How would you define social justice, and how would you incorporate that into your platform?
Yeah, sure. So a brief definition maybe of social justice could be equal opportunities and equity and upholding the dignity in all humans. I think unfortunately, at times, social justice has become stigmatized maybe in the Christian realm, and I'm not really sure why that is, and it's also maybe politicized, and kind of recognizing that as Christians, we should be striving for social justice, and I know there's definitely different beliefs and ideologies within that venue, but as a whole, we should be striving for equal opportunities and equity for everybody. And through my experience at the Agape Center, I've really learned a lot more about that. And each week I go and I serve at Salvation Army, and I serve breakfast with a group of 3 to 4 volunteers, and it's really been awesome, and I've been able to learn about different social issues and really just meet people who are different than me and just get to know them. And so I would advocate for more opportunities like that. Even just in the Agape Center, like, I don't know, there's a low representation of guys who are going out and serving, and not that this is just a guy problem, it's an everybody problem, but I think even, let's start there. Guys, where are you at? Come to the Agape Center, come out and serve. So, yeah.
So what social justice means to me is I would put it into 3 terms. The first thing would be loving one another to the best we can. The second thing would be bringing peace to everyone. And the third would be having a sense of belonging. I think everyone should experience these 3 things in one way or another, and we should do our best to embody these things. And it starts off first within ourselves on our day-to-day lives, and seeing how we can pertain to everybody all around us, kind of asking yourself, how can I show love to this person? How can I bring peace to this person? And how can I make this person feel like they belong in this environment? And I think that's how we would implement it as well.
Okay, this will be our last question, and it will be for Yabetz and Will. With the majority of the student body being females, how will you attempt to understand the female population and represent them adequately? I would like both of you to answer this question.
Yeah, so as you can tell, we're both guys. We don't know what it feels like to be a woman. And so we do have the willingness and the heart to listen and understand. We are more than happy to take the time out of our days to understand and kind of, even in our own cabinet, to have a broad perspective to see how we can better understand the female life. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question, and definitely we sit here at a disadvantage with that because we are both men. But I think developing the relationships and fostering the relationships I think we already have. I think we have connections with a lot of women around campus, and continuing to build those, and even within our cabinet, making sure that there's good representation of the women population on campus, and and being open to listen and open to hear different perspectives that maybe we hadn't considered. I think is as important, and just understanding that gender is a really important concept to understand society, and it dictates a lot of things, unfortunately. And so being aware of that, and as we go about our business, I think is important. And trying to also reduce different stereotypes too, I think will be important for us. So.
Okay, would you please give our candidates a round of applause? So in order to know what to do next, I'm going to give you a little bit of information. We're having a slight technical difficulty, so once Jordan puts the voting link on the PowerPoint, you will be able to vote. There's also a QR code, and if you cannot vote tonight, if there are difficulties with getting in, we will extend the voting time. You also will be sent a mass email sometime between tonight and tomorrow morning with the voting link if you do not get a chance to vote tonight. Just a reminder, you will be able to vote until March 6th at 8 p.m. We will notify you if that date will change. So make sure that you guys vote and tell your friends to vote, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Have a great evening.